News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Alexis Christoforous.
Alexis, will have the latest developments in the Iran war in a moment, but we begin with a major developing story on Capitol Hill. After 6 weeks of both sides digging in, the Senate has passed a bill to end the Department of Homeland Security shutdown. Majority Leader John Thune made the announcement just after 2 in the morning, Wall Street time.
Just a few minutes ago, Republicans funded the Department of Homeland Security piecemeal. It's not the way to fund the department.
Majority Leader John Thune spoke on the Senate floor, and we get more from Bloomberg Deputy Washington Bureau Chief Laura Davison.
This bill would essentially extend government funding for most of the Department of Homeland Security, with the exception of ICE and Border Patrol, those sort of being the two most controversial pieces that will continue to be negotiated in Congress. I'll note this is just one step in a process. This bill needs to go to the House next, and then Donald Trump's desk for signature. So this is still something that is tenuous and could take several more days, if not a couple weeks.
Bloomberg's Laura Davison reports President Trump had said he would sign an executive order to pay TSA workers before the Senate vote. Democrats are now poised to walk away from the shutdown debate with the immigration reforms they wanted left behind, while Republicans face a high-stakes fight to fund their immigration agenda through a partisan budget bill.
And now to the latest on the Iran war. President Trump is once again pushing back his deadline for Tehran to reach a deal with the U.S. In a social media post, the president said he'll hold off on attacking Iran's energy infrastructure for 10 days. At a White House cabinet meeting heard live here on Bloomberg Radio, the president said talks are going very well and the U.S. war effort is extremely ahead of schedule.
They are begging to make a deal, not me. They're begging to make a deal. And anybody that saw what was happening over there would understand why they want to make a deal.
President Trump there at the White House. Bloomberg Middle East correspondent Jumana Bersetchi reports it's still unclear who the U.S. is talking with.
A lot of this is rhetoric, but what we do know is that there are no physical meetings that have been decided on yet, and Pakistan have been put forward as a key mediator in that regard, but nothing has been confirmed. And yet the language that continues to come out of Iran is one of defiance. They seem to not be in the mood of compromising and continue to strike back.
And Bloomberg's Jumana Bersetchi reports the extended deadline also gives the U.S. more time to build up forces. The Wall Street Journal is reporting the Pentagon is considering sending up to 10,000 additional troops to the Middle East.
Alexis, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer says he won't be bullied by President Trump and won't change his mind due to pressure from the president. Starmer spoke with Sky News.
I have been clear I'm not going to join the war. There's a clear difference, therefore, of opinion between me and President Trump. My own view is that a lot of what is said and done has been to put pressure on me to change my mind, but I'm not going to do so because I'm the British Prime Minister and I have to act in the British national interest.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has been repeatedly insulted by President Trump. He says Starmer has made a big mistake.
And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is seeking to offer his nation's anti-drone expertise in exchange for defense support during a surprise visit to the Gulf region. The offer comes on news Ukraine risks running out of money to pay for its defense against Russia within 2 months. According to estimates shared by both domestic and foreign officials, Kyiv currently has only enough funds to cover spending until June. Nathan.
Well, this morning, Alexis, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in France meeting his group of 7 foreign minister counterparts. This comes just hours after President Trump complained bitterly about NATO countries not stepping up to help the U.S. and Israel in the Iran war. Rubio may have a hard time trying to sell the other diplomats on the U.S. strategy. Almost all nations have raised objections to it.
$200 oil. Macquarie Group says that's the price it may hit if the Iran war drags on until June. The conflict has seen Tehran oversee a near complete closure of the Strait of Hormuz. Brent crude is on pace for a record monthly gain in March. Checking right now, it's about $110 the barrel. And futures are mostly unchanged as we close out the trading week. Right now, S&P futures down just fractionally, or about 8 points lower. Yesterday, stocks suffered their worst loss since January. The S&P 500 fell 1.75%. The tech-heavy NASDAQ 100 slid 2.4%.
Well, you may be seeing tensions escalate between the U.S. and China this morning, Alexis. China's Ministry of Commerce says it's begun 2 trade investigations against the U.S. They involve supply chains and renewable products. It's retaliation to U.S. trade probes ahead of an expected presidential summit in Beijing in May.
And 3 Fed officials are expressing growing concern over the economic outlook due to the Middle East war. Fed Governor Lisa Cook says the spike in oil prices means inflation is now a bigger concern than the labor market.
I see the balance of risks as being largely on net in balance, but I would argue that the inflation risk is greater right now as a result of the Iran war.
Fed Governor Lisa Cook made those comments yesterday in a speech in Connecticut. 2 of her colleagues, Fed Governor Michael Barr and Fed Vice Chair Philip Jefferson, say they preferred to keep rates on hold while they assess the length of the conflict and its impact on energy prices. And that's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Alexis Christoforous.
I'm Nathan Hager, and this is Bloomberg.